and thank you for watching The Righteous Kitchen, a cooking and baking blog found at www.therighteouskitchen.blogspot.com. Today I am going to show you how to put together a caramel apple crumble cheesecake. It has a homemade caramel sauce, a crumble, an apple topping, and the cheesecake, and then the base. I usually do this recipe in 2 days. The first day I will put together the cheesecake, and then the second day I will get the crumble and the apple topping and the caramel made. Over here I have everything measured for my cheesecake filling, and then over here I have everything ready to go for the crust. I am using 2 sleeves of graham crackers. I use 2 because I want that crust to go all the way up to the sides of the cheesecake pan. That's my personal preference. I just think it gives it a nice clean look when it does that. There's little things that you could do to a recipe to give it a, a more professional look. And I just think that cheesecake going all the way up the sides is really nice, and it releases from the pan really well too. All right, I'm gonna add cinnamon and sugar, and all the measurements will be in the description of the video. So I'm going to process this to a fine powdery crumb. And that doesn't take long at all. And then I have 1 stick of butter that's completely melted, and we're gonna get this in there as well. I'll give it a little stir because I want all these crumbs to be saturated with that butter. Okay, that is good enough. Get this out of the way. And I'm just going to, I'm using a 9-inch springform pan. It's a deeper one, about a 3-inch deep pan. And now I could just finish these crumbs right into the springform pan. And I'll check to make sure that they're well incorporated. So just look around, make sure they're incorporated, and if there's any chunks that didn't get ground up, you can just crush them with your fingers. So what I do here is I go in and make just make it kind of even on the bottom, but then start pushing it a little bit towards the side because we want this all to come up towards the side. All right, what we want is, for this mixture, we want it to be pressed in very good on the bottom. So I just am using the smooth bottom of a measuring cup, and I'm getting in there and just pushing the crumbs to the side. So I want to get my base first, and then I'll start pushing them over up against the edge of the pan, the inside. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to go all the way up. I say probably about 3/4 of the way up. So I have the bottom pretty good. You want this pressed in good because when you go to slice it, you want all these crumbs to be there. Hold everything together. Now I'm just going to use my fingers and go around and press really hard all around this side. Alright. Just keep going to get it all pressed. If any fell, just go in there and get them back onto the bottom. Press all the crumbs. And that is it. Go around this a little bit more. Okay, so this is the crumb, or the graham cracker crumb base. What I'm going to do now is bake this for 7 minutes in the preheated oven. And that 7 minutes is going to give me just enough time to put together this filling with the ingredients already measured up. I have my sugar and flour. I'm going to want to whisk that together. I want that flour completely incorporated with the sugar. So I will do this now so we won't get any lumps. Okay, see, when you're turning it, you shouldn't see any flour lumps. We don't want a lumpy cheesecake. That being said, all of our ingredients are at room temperature. That's very important. Everything has to be at room temperature or you will get lumps. All right, I have 5 packages of cream cheese. I like to use Philadelphia brand cream cheese or Challenge dairy cream cheese. I prefer Challenge a little bit over Philly. So those are the 2 I like. Okay, we've got the cream cheese. And I want to mix this really well. I'm going to beat it. This is the longest time that I'm going to beat it. I want to get it really smooth and lump free. So I'm going to just start out low and increase the speed. You want it all softened up. And I have it on high right now. And what I'm going to do now is scrape it down. I'm going to scrape it down all the sides and try to get the bottom scraped down as well. Give it another beating. All right. Let me get the sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the sour cream. All right. Check for lumps. You don't want any lumps. If they're in there, you need to get them worked out. So I'm not seeing any lumps. And that's because everything has been sitting out at room temperature. I'm going to give it a little bit more mix. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add the sugar and the flour. Alright, I'm going to start out on slow so we don't get a sugar plume. Give it another mix. All right, we've been mixing it pretty liberal. I'm gonna give it one more mix, and then we're gonna put the eggs in. All right. This is where we want to cut back on that mixing. We're going to put it on low and add our egg one at a time. I'm using 4 whole eggs and 1 egg yolk. And I have a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to go ahead and scrape the sides down and the bottom, get everything knocked down. Okay. All right, that's enough mixing. I'm going to go ahead and take it from the mixer. My hands are clean. I'm going to get all this off of the beater. Okay, let me wash my hands real quick. Now, what I'm going to do is get my crust out of the oven and lower the oven. And here is the crust right there. I put that at 275, and then the crust is going to cool down a little bit. Now let's get to this filling. Gonna scrape it. I like to give it a good stir. Look at that, beautiful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the filling in this cheesecake crust. Just a little bit more here. All right. Let me get a knife here. All right. Don't, there's a little bit of lumps from that spatula, but that's okay. What you want to do is you want to get some air bubbles out, but you don't want to be knocking this pan around. So just use a knife and get in here like that. Okay. And now this is going back to the oven. We are cooking this for 275 until the middle of the cheesecake is firm. About 2 hours. So this is a lower temperature for a longer time. So we're going low and slow. That's going to keep the cheesecake from cracking. And then if you see my other videos, I have a video for Fresno Jason's California cheesecake, and then I have a lemon meringue cheesecake. It all uses the same base filling here, and then I always bake my cheesecake on a baking pan. It has to have a lip on it, because if oil or anything seeps out of this pan, it could catch fire in your oven. So this is a good preventative of that. It's a safety feature to cook in a baking tray. And then it's also easier for you to get your cheesecake in and out. It's better to hold on to it if you have a tray. So always bake in a tray. All right, we're putting this in, and it's going in 275 for 2 hours. At about an hour and a half or so, I'll keep checking on it and kind of watching for that center to be set. So I will check with you later. Okay, it's been 2 hours, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the cheesecake from the oven. All right. You can see how it's a little bit puffy on the top. And it's got a little jiggle. I am going to go ahead and put this in there. I don't want it to jiggle quite that much. So I am going to put it in there. I'm going to check it like every 5 minutes and see. Sometimes I let it puff up just to the point where I feel it's going to crack, and then I pull it from the oven. So let me put this in here. It's jiggling, and I want it to be a little bit more firm than that. So back to the oven, and I will check on this in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been about 2 hours and 5 or 7 minutes or so. And I am going to go ahead and take this out. Okay. Okay, it got puffy, and I think it's good. It did start to get a little browning on the top. That's fine. What I want to do now is get this to cooling to room temp. So very carefully, I'm going to move this to a cooling rack, and then just let that cool to room temp. After it cools to room temp, I'll put a sheet of plastic wrap over the top. This cheesecake has been cooling to room temperature for about 4 hours. And all I'm gonna do now is just cover it with plastic wrap. And I want this plastic wrap to sit directly on top of the cheesecake. No air gaps in there. And you can see there's no jiggle to it. As it cooled, it firmed up even more. So what I do is I just put it right back on that baking tray. This is going to protect it while it's in the refrigerator. And I will finish it tomorrow. Okay, the cheesecake has been in the refrigerator overnight, and it's nice and cold. And now we are going to cook the apples for the apple topping. And so I have 4 apples that have been peeled and cored and sliced to about 1/8 of an inch wedge. And so I'm going to pour lemon juice over the top of them and give it a stir to coat. And then these need to be cooked, so I'm going to be cooking them in front of you in an electric skillet. And I also have 1 cup of apple juice. I'm using apple cider today, but the recipe calls for apple juice. That's fine. And then I stir cornstarch into this while it's cold, so that it'll be able to mix it. So you want all the lumps out of the cornstarch. And I might just strain this before it goes in, just to make sure that I got all of the lumps. Always stir cornstarch into a cold liquid. All right, I have brown sugar and cinnamon. Let me give that a quick stir. Then I have a stick of butter. Let's get this started. I'll move my electric skillet over. And we are going to start with the butter. So we'll get our butter melting. And you want this, on medium-high heat or medium heat. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. About 300 is what I'm going to put it on. So to that, we're going to go ahead and add the apple. Then we'll get the brown sugar and the cinnamon in here. So all we're going to need to do is just cook those until the apples are softened. Smells really good. Smells like apple pie in here. I'm going to turn down the heat just a little bit to about 275. So I'm going to just keep stirring these until these are fork tender. We don't want them really mashed up, but we want them just to be able to put our fork in there. Because we're going to be eating these, so we don't want them raw. We want them cooked, but not mushy. So I'm going to let these go for a few minutes, and then I'll be right back. Okay, these apples have been cooking away. And I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit more, about 225. Okay, the apples are fork tender. And I have this apple cider with the cornstarch. And I'm just going to strain it. There wasn't any clumps, but just to make sure. Alright, so all we're going to do now is let this come to a boil. So now I can go ahead and bump that back up to about 275. And I was fortunate to have on hand fresh apple cider. And what I do when I get the apple cider is I reduce it when I get it home. Right now it's reduced 2 to 1. And I'm using that in here. And this is going to really have a nice apple cider taste. But like I said, the first time I made it, I just used apple juice. And that was fine. But if you have apple cider, well, then that's even better. So we're going to let this boil for 1 minute. This is done, and what I'm going to do is just go ahead and turn the heat off, move it over to the side, and let this cool. We want it nice and cool. I'm going to let it come to room temperature. Then kind of see, I might even refrigerate it. But we want it nice and cool before we put it on the cheesecake. Okay, we are ready to continue with the crumb topping for the cheesecake. And I have flour, cinnamon, sugar, and brown sugar. I'm just going to mix this up a little bit. All right, into the mixing bowl, all of the dry ingredients. Mix it on slow. You want all that cinnamon combined. All right. They have 1 stick of cold butter. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. You want this to form a crumble, not a dough. So here we go, on low. And just watch it, you'll know when it's all crumbly. So I've got this off of the mixer now, and it's come together, and I'm gonna just press it with my hands a little bit. And then I'm going to pour it out on the tray so you can see exactly what kind of texture. So we want this to have some crumbs. Oop. And so you control how you want it. So just get in here and let it break where they're bigger pieces. Okay? You are the crumb master. All right. Just break, see it's a smaller. You're breaking it up smaller, but you're getting them into bigger pieces. All right, so put it together and then just kind of break it gently like that. All right, so we have the oven is at 350, and this is gonna bake. It's gonna take about a half an hour, but what we're gonna do is about every 10 minutes, we're gonna go and turn these. All right, so we've got some nice, big chunks in here where we're gonna get some nice crumbles. So I think that's gonna work. Maybe we'll do some more. All right, go in there and get some more. Just take your time. But this is an impressive part of this cheesecake are the nice huge crumbles. All right, so 350 oven, you want them all spread out. And then every 10 minutes, I'll bring them out in 10 minutes. I'll show you what you need to do, but we're just gonna flip them over and let them cook all the way around. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, it has been 10 minutes. So I'm gonna get the crumbs out. And you can see how they've already started cooking. They're puffing up. I just go in here and flip them. This is the same way I make my granola. You just come in here and flip them. That's it. Maybe shake them around, get them all separated again. And then come back in 10 more minutes. Do the same thing. Okay, it's been another 10 minutes, so I'm going to bring them out again and give them another flip. And now you can see they're getting more dried out. Easier to flip. And we've got nice big crumbles in here. All right, 10 more minutes. Now check on them about 5 minutes through. You don't want them to burn. But these are probably gonna take another 10 minutes, but we're gonna check on them during that time. Keep an eye on them. Okay, it's been about 33 minutes on these crumbs. Let's look them over. Okay, you can see they're nice and crunchy and everything. I'm gonna let him go about another probably about another 2 or 3 minutes, just to make sure. These have cooked 35 minutes and they have started to get slightly brown. And that's what we want. So we've got some really nice looking crumbles here. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and move these off to the side and let them cool down. And I'm gonna bring out the cheesecake. Well, let me just bring out the cheesecake and I'll show you all the components that we have so far. Okay, we have our cheesecake that's been chilled overnight. We have the crumbles. See if you can see that. We have the apple topping that's cooling down. And then I have another video where I showed how to make Michelle's salted caramel. So I didn't need to make any this time. There is another video that takes you through that process. So let me get these crumbs out of the way. And we will start to assemble. All right. So, to assemble, I'm gonna work on this tray just for a second. I'm gonna keep the plastic on, and then let's see how it releases. Okay, it released just fine. So let me go ahead and take this off and get that out of the way. All right. So this looks good. If there's any crumbs, go ahead and just brush those off of the side. This is nice working in the pan because you can keep all of your mess contained right here. All right, so it's nice and clean. And I have decided on what stand I want to use. So I'm going to get the stand. This is the lid to a, oh, this is a snack tray, never mind. It's a dip tray, but I use it for a cake stand also. All right. Give it one last cleanup with my hands and make sure everything falls into the pan there. All right, so we've got it right in the middle of our tray. Let me wipe my hands. Okay, so this has a lot of toppings that go on it. So we're gonna need a little bit of help to keep everything in place. Let me move this over to the side real quick. All right, I have a long piece of parchment, and I'm just gonna fold it in thirds real quick. And when you're working with parchment, a lot of times the tape doesn't want to stick. But I haven't tested out duct tape. So we'll see how good the duct tape holds up. All right. So grab a couple of pieces, and I want to just kind of hold this down. If you don't have duct tape, just use a stapler. Yeah, this isn't going to work very well. Well, let me see. Let me just keep going. And we'll see if it works good enough. What I'm doing right now is just wrapping this. All right. I am going to be right back. I'm going to get the stapler. Okay, so effectively all that I'm doing is making a band with this parchment so that it will hold all of the topping ingredients in place for me. So I'm just going to come here and staple this down. All right. So I want this nice and tight, going right around the edge of this cheesecake. And then we just get it as taut as you can. And take the stapler okay, now it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want something that's going to help us to keep all of our ingredients in place, and that's what's going to do it. All right, we're ready. We have the apple pie filling that has cooled, and I want to just come in here and I want to go around the edges and make a border with these, and then I'll work my way in. I want to just try to get as many apples layered in here as I can. So we'll start the edge and then just work your way in. Now after the edge, it really doesn't matter, but try to keep them an even layer. Okay. Now this is going to thicken up when I put it in the refrigerator. So we want just as much as we can get in here. Kind of evenly, but we don't really want this syrup making a mess. Okay, so that's pretty good. We have some more of this though. Like I said, this is gonna thicken up like an apple pie would thicken up when it gets cold. And I'm going to go ahead and take it off of the stand for right now. I think you'll be able to see it better if we take it off the stand. And I'm going to actually put it back into the tray because I want to refrigerate this and let this filling set up. All right, so now, well, that's nice and gooey, the filling still. We're just gonna scoop these crumbles, and you could go work from the edge. And they're gonna stick to that filling. But you want everything to be covered up. Alright, just put everything in there. Alright, and then you've got this band, so everything is staying in here. It's got a nice, alright. So now what I'm going to do is drizzle the caramel over the top. Now you can also serve extra caramel when you go to plate it. All right, so this is done. What I want to do now is just put this back in the refrigerator for an hour or so, maybe 2 hours, for everything to just come together on that filling. And that's going to make it easier to slice. So I'll come back in a couple of hours. This cheesecake has been in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and I'm gonna just go ahead and carefully, I'm always keeping track of where these staples are. You don't want to just, you know, tear it off and that the staple fly somewhere. So always when you're using these staples, just be careful and make sure that they're all accounted for. Now, I'm probably pretty sure that you might not even use staples, but it works for me. I'm not a professional baker. They have acetate and tape and stuff. They, you know, do it right. But for the home baker, you have to improvise sometimes. But this is the cake. And everything is set up now pretty well. So I'm just going to come over here and get it on the cake stand. And then whenever you're baking, you kind of want to look and see, you know, what side do I want for the front, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna go this angle right here. Let me move that. And actually, go ahead and clean up your board. I'm going to move the cutting board out of the way. But here it is. So that looks very pretty. So that is the caramel apple crumble cheesecake. This is an original recipe of mine. Most of my cheesecakes have the same base, and then I just play around with toppings and crust and stuff like that. But this here is a family favorite. And just look at those crumbles. See how we made them a little bit larger so you can really see them. And they really make a statement. And then we've got the apple peeking through, and then the caramel sauce. So I I'm going to carefully try to cut through here. And that first piece might be a little bit hard to get through. Let's see how I do. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. And I'll let you see inside and clean up this stand a little bit. And I will give you a look at the inside. Hold on just a second. Okay. There we have it. And that first slice, sometimes when you have so many toppings, sometimes it gives you a little trouble. But for the most part, we got that out of there pretty well. Caramel apple crumble cheesecake. It was a lot to put together. It had a lot of parts involved in making it, but it's a fantastic recipe. It's very impressive to serve this to your guest. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I would appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.